Welcome to Fear Begins, the home of true horror that creeps under your skin and never leaves. Tonight's story is a chilling reminder that some forests remember, and some cries never stop echoing. If you have ever felt watched in the woods, or heard something whisper your name where no one should be, this one is for you. Drop a comment below if you have experienced something unexplainable and tell us, where are you watching from tonight? Now, let us begin. My name is Thomas Keller. I am 36 years old and I swore I would never go back to that place, but last fall, after my mother passed, I had no choice. The deed to the old house on Briar Hill passed to me, along with the memories I had buried, and the one thing I never stopped hearing, my sister's voice. Lila Keller disappeared. When she was 8, I was 10 at the time. We lived in a weathered blue house tucked into the West Virginia mountains, right at the edge of a ridge everyone called Briar Hill. Our backyard bled into the tree line, and just beyond that was the holloway, shallow dip in the land, so overgrown with moss and vine that it looked like the forest itself had been trying to swallow it. Lila used to say there were voices in the hollow. She would go to the edge of it after dinner, stand still, head tilted, as if she was listening to someone whisper secrets only she could hear. One night, she walked into the woods and never came back. Search teams scoured the area for weeks. They found nothing, no torn clothes, no blood, not even footprints. It was as if the trees had taken her and covered their tracks. I moved away after college, tried to forget it all, but I never really did, because some nights, no matter where I lived, I would wake up to the sound of her voice, calling from the trees. When I drove back to Briar Hill last November, the house looked smaller than I remembered, but the woods looked the same, alive, heavy. Watching, I told myself I would only stay one night, just enough time to grab a few family things, clean out the rooms, and leave. But that night, the forest called again. It started with a scratching at the back door, like branches in the wind, except there was no wind. Then the porch light flickered once, then twice, then died. I walked to the window and looked out, and that is when I heard it. Tommy, a soft voice from the woods. Tommy, come see. I felt every hair on my body rise, because it was her voice, Lila's voice. Exactly how it sounded 26 years ago. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. Something pulled me into the woods, not physically, not violently, but emotionally, as if my body remembered a trail my mind had forgotten. I walked past the rusted fence that separated the backyard from the trees, down the same slope she disappeared into, and stopped at the edge of the hollow. The vines were still there, the moss, the fog that seemed to roll across the ground like breath. And then, from inside the hollow, something moved. A girl, small, barefoot, wearing a yellow dress I had not seen in decades. Layla's dress. She was facing away, looking into the earth, as if something was buried there. Slowly she turned toward me. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but not quite right, like someone had recreated her from memory and had gotten just a few things wrong. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, only a high-pitched ringing like a broken frequency trying to push into my brain. I stumbled back, tripped over a root, and hit the ground. When I opened my eyes, she was gone, but in her place was a small wooden box, half buried in the dirt where she had been standing. I dug it out with my hands. Inside was a torn piece of fabric and a note written in my sister's handwriting. It was not my choice. Do not trust the man in the tree. I left the hollow, ran all the way back to the house, locked every door and window, That night I dreamed of the forest again. Only this time, there was someone else, a tall man dressed in old-fashioned clothes standing under a dead tree. His face was not there, just a blur of skin, and he was holding something, a child's shoe. The next morning I returned to the hollow, but it was different. The vines were gone, the fog was gone, even the dip in the earth looked flatter like the land had healed itself overnight. I walked in circles for hours, but never found the box again. I sold the house 2 weeks later, moved across the country, but I have not slept peacefully since, because every so often, right as I am falling asleep, I hear her voice again. Tommy, he still lives in the tree. And I remember what they never told us, what the old people in the hills used to whisper, that some parts of the Appalachian woods do not belong to us, and some hollows are not meant to be walked through twice. Not everything that calls your name means you should answer. Some echoes are just traps waiting to pull you back in. And in the Appalachian Mountains, even the forest has a memory. Have you ever passed an old house and felt like something behind the window was staring back? Some structures in the Appalachian Hills are forgotten for a reason, because what is inside never left. Now, let us move into the second tale of the night. This is not folklore. This is not fiction. This is what happens when someone opens the wrong door and cannot close it again. My name is Grant Foley. I am 41 years old, and I fix houses no one else will touch. I run a restoration business based out of Asheville. Most of my clients are city people who move to the mountains and panic when they hear the wind moan through their floorboards. Last October, I got a call I should have ignored. The woman on the line said she owned a small property on Miller's Bend, an old road that twisted into the northern Appalachian woods. She was trying to sell it, but buyers kept backing out after visiting the place. Everyone says the house feels wrong, she told me. They will not go inside unless it is fixed. I asked what needed repair. Just the front door, she said. The blue one. I drove up 2 days later. The road narrowed the deeper I went, and soon there were no more signs. No other houses, only trees pressing close to both sides of my truck. Eventually, I saw it, a sagging white cottage with a pale blue door, faded peeling, crooked on its hinges, but nothing else looked wrong. The windows were intact, the frame was level, the yard, though overgrown, looked untouched. I walked up the steps and immediately felt it. The air changed, like stepping through a curtain of cold water. Still, I knocked once. No answer. I opened the blue door, and the smell hit me first. Not rot, not mildew. It smelled like copper old pennies, and something that stung the back of my throat. The interior was empty. No furniture, no boxes, just bare wood, floors and dust. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The moment the latch clicked, the air got heavier. I turned around, and the blue door was no longer crooked. It sat perfectly flush in the frame, like it had never been damaged. I blinked. Looked again. No peeling paint, no rust on the hinges, but when I reached for the knob to test it, it would not turn. Locked from the inside. I pulled harder. Nothing. It was as if the door did not exist anymore. Suddenly, I heard footsteps above me. Someone was upstairs. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I walked up the narrow staircase. Each step groaned like a scream. The upstairs hallway had 3 rooms. The last door on the right was shut. Something moved behind it, a shadow under the crack. I placed my hand on the doorknob and turned. The room was empty, except there was a mirror on the wall, not hanging, built-in. He stepped closer, and the mirror reflected me. But behind me, there was a figure, a woman, long black hair, wearing an old dress. Her mouth was open wide, but in real life, no one was there. I spun, heart-thudding, empty hallway, but when I turned back to the mirror, the woman was closer, almost touching my reflection, and her eyes were not eyes. They were hollow, black, and dripping. I ran down the stairs, pounded on the door. It still would not open. Then I remembered something. I had not seen any other doors upstairs. No bathroom, no closets, but there was one door in the entry hallway, painted the same pale blue. I opened it, stairs going down into blackness. I had no flashlight, but I had no other choice. The basement stank of damp stone and mold. I reached the bottom and turned toward a flicker of light. Candles, dozens of them lit in a circle. In the center was a small cradle. Inside, something moved. I leaned in closer and saw a doll, but it was not a doll. It had teeth, real ones, jutting out of cracked porcelain skin, and it smiled at me. Then it said, "You closed the door. Now you belong here." I bolted back upstairs, slammed into the blue door again. This time, it opened just like that. I tumbled onto the porch and scrambled to my truck. Blue door slammed behind me. Never went back. But 2 weeks later, the woman called again. She asked if the repairs were done. I said, "Ma'am, that house is not broken. It is alive." She paused, then said, "Good, that means it is still working." And she hung up. Sometimes a door is not just a door. Sometimes it is a trap, waiting for someone curious enough to knock. And in the Appalachian woods, you do not always get to choose what opens or what stays shut forever. There are places in Appalachia no one talks about, buildings left behind, rotting under the trees. But sometimes they are not empty, and sometimes what is inside is waiting for someone just like you. Let me tell you what happened when a pair of hikers stepped off the trail and found a place that should have stayed buried under time. My name is Michelle Lawrence. I was 27 years old when I hiked Ironwood Ridge for the last time. I was not new to the mountains. I had grown up in Southwest Virginia, climbed nearly every trail along the edge of the Blue Ridge. But Ironwood Ridge was different. It did not show up on most maps. The rangers always said the terrain was unstable. Rockslides, old mines, flash floods, but people talked about it. Locals said there was an old church somewhere near the summit, built in the 1800s, abandoned after a fire killed half the congregation inside. They said the church never burned down completely, that the frame still stood, and on certain nights, you could hear singing echoing from inside. My best friend Olivia and I thought it would be perfect for a Halloween hike. We planned to camp halfway up, reach the summit by morning, take photos of the ruins if we found them. We parked at an old service, rode and hiked 3 hours into the woods. The trees were thick, the ground soft and uneven. Just before dusk, we found the church. It was not on the summit. It sat low, tucked into a small hollow, like something had pushed it there deliberately. The roof was half collapsed. The bell tower leaned at an angle, but the front doors, tall, arched, blackened from fire, still stood, and they were slightly open. Olivia laughed, said it looked like something out of a ghost story. But I felt sick just looking at it. Still, we went inside. The floor creaked under our boots. A faint smell of ash clung to the air, and the walls were lined with rows of burned pews. But at the far end of the sanctuary, behind the altar, there was something that did not belong. A new wooden chair, polished clean, placed perfectly at the center of a sunbeam that came through a hole in the ceiling. Olivia walked toward it. Before I could stop her, she sat down and smiled. The moment she did, The air shifted, the sound of whispers, soft layered male and female voices speaking at once. None of them made sense. I reached for her butt. She did not move. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on something behind me. Turned and saw nothing. Then the doors slammed shut. Everything went dark. Only the whispering remained. But it grew louder, faster, like a dozen mouths pressed against my ears. I screamed, ran toward the door, pulled and pulled it. Did not move. I turned back. Olivia was standing now. But her face was wrong. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes too black, and she said, "They do not like the light." Suddenly the sunbeam shifted, moved away from the chair, and the church grew cold. In the dim light I saw them, figures, pale, thin, crawling from beneath the pews. From the cracks in the floor, their mouths never closed, only whispered, and their eyes never blinked. One reached for me, and I ran. Do not remember how I got out, only that I woke up the next morning, half a mile from the church. Alone, no sign of Olivia. I searched for days. The authorities combed the ridge, found nothing, no tracks, no campsite, no burned church. They said Ironwood Ridge had been closed off for years, that no such structure existed. But I know what I saw, because every year on Halloween night, I hear her voice whisper through my phone just one sentence: "You left me in the light." These mountains hold more than trees and dirt. They carry whispers, they remember screams. They never forget who dared to listen. Thank you for watching episode 7 of Fear Begins. Make sure you are subscribed, because next time we go even deeper into the forgotten shadows of Appalachia.